Have you ever rocked a baby for what feels like hours, humming every lullaby you know, only to have them jolt awake the second you set them down? Or maybe you've sat with your grown child, watching their exhausted face as they struggle to get their baby to sleep, and you think to yourself, there has to be a better way than this. If you've raised kids before, you know the dance of bedtime all too well. And if you're a grandparent now, maybe you're helping out, offering support, or simply observing the chaos that sleep time can bring to a young family. No matter how much time has passed, one thing remains true: sleep is just as important for babies as it is for us, and maybe even more so. But what many people forget is that it's often the smallest things that can throw baby sleep completely off track. Now, here's the good news: most of those things are easy to fix once we see them clearly. In this video, we're going to walk through 5 of the most common, yet often overlooked, mistakes parents make that end up making baby sleep worse. We're not here to blame or overwhelm. We're here to shine a light on what's getting in the way of peaceful nights, and how to gently change it. Because let's be honest, a well-rested baby means a well-rested household. And if you're anything like me, you know how precious a good night's sleep really is, especially when you've lived through decades of restless ones. Let's start with one of the biggest, and most forgotten, factors: overstimulation right before bedtime. It's a simple idea, but one that's easy to miss. Babies are like little sponges. Every light, every noise, every face, every sound, they soak it all in. And even when they look calm, their brains are firing away, processing it all. So, imagine what happens when the house is busy, the TV is on, phones are glowing, someone's talking loudly on speakerphone, and it's just an hour before bedtime. We think babies will fall asleep because they're tired. But the truth is, an overstimulated baby often becomes a wired baby. Their little nervous systems get stuck in overdrive, and by the time you're trying to rock them to sleep, their brain is still doing somersaults from all the excitement. One mother I spoke to had a beautiful nightly routine: bath, bottle, lullaby. But right before that, she'd been letting her baby play with a noisy toy that flashed lights and sang songs. She thought it kept the baby entertained while she got things ready. But once she removed that toy from the bedtime window, something amazing happened. Her baby started settling faster and staying asleep longer. That's the kind of shift we're looking for here. Not massive changes. Just thoughtful, gentle tweaks that make bedtime easier on everyone. Now, there's another thing that trips people up, and this one's easy to miss if you're relying on memory from your parenting days. It's skipping the wind-down period altogether. Life is busy. Parents are juggling work, errands, dinner, laundry, you name it. So sometimes, bedtime turns into a race. Feed the baby, change the diaper, zip up the pajamas, turn off the light, and hope for the best. But here's the secret most people forget: babies need time to transition from awake to asleep, just like we do. Think about it: how often do you climb straight into bed and fall asleep instantly without any time to unwind? You might read a little, sip some tea, turn off the lights gradually. Your body shifts into sleep mode. Babies need that too. And the younger they are, the more they rely on us to create that calming environment. A quiet room, dim lighting, maybe some gentle white noise or a soft lullaby, not just for 5 minutes, but for a consistent period before sleep. It tells their body, it's time to slow down now. I've seen grandparents make an incredible difference here. One woman told me she visits once a week to help her daughter, and she noticed bedtime was always stressful. So she started arriving a little earlier and simply holding the baby, walking slowly through the house with the lights low. She didn't say much. She just hummed, gently swayed, and helped the baby relax. After a few weeks, her daughter said, "I don't know what you're doing, but she sleeps better when you're here." It wasn't magic, it was the power of calm. And sometimes, that calm starts with us. Now, before we move forward, there's one more thing that makes a huge impact, one that surprises many parents and grandparents. It's inconsistent sleep cues. Babies thrive on patterns. Their brains are constantly trying to make sense of the world. When the cues around bedtime change from one night to the next, it's like throwing them into a maze and asking them to find their way out with a blindfold on. Imagine this: One night the baby falls asleep in a quiet, dark room. The next night, they fall asleep in the living room with cartoons playing in the background. Then the next night, someone rocks them until they're completely out before transferring them to the crib. And the night after that, they're put down drowsy, but awake. To us, these variations seem small. But to a baby, they're huge. Because sleep is not just a state, it's a learned behavior. And babies learn through repetition. One father told me he was frustrated that his son would only fall asleep in his arms. Every time he tried to lay him down, the baby would wake up crying. But here's what he didn't realize: he'd always been putting him to sleep in his arms. So naturally, the baby thought, "This is how I fall asleep. In Daddy's arms." It wasn't until he started creating a repeatable sleep cue, a short lullaby, a cuddle, and placing the baby down drowsy but awake, that his son began to connect those actions with sleep itself. That's what we want: consistent, loving cues that tell a baby, "You're safe. It's time to rest." The routine doesn't need to be long. It just needs to be steady. Now that we've talked about overstimulation, wind down time, and sleep cues, you're already beginning to see how powerful small changes can be. It's always amazing, isn't it, how just a tiny adjustment in routine, one soft song, one dimmed light, can create such a big difference in how a baby sleeps. And when you think about how fragile their world is, it makes perfect sense. They're still getting used to being here. Everything is new, and the way we guide them, especially at night, becomes their map for what feels safe and soothing. Now, let's talk about something many parents never realize until they are in the thick of it: responding too quickly during night wakings. It's only natural. You hear the baby fussing or stirring, and your instinct kicks in: rush in, pick them up, soothe them immediately. It comes from love, of course. Nobody wants to see a baby upset. And when you're tired, the fastest way to get back to sleep is to quiet the baby as quickly as possible. But here's what often gets overlooked. Babies, like us, move through sleep cycles. They stir, sigh, shift their bodies, even cry out a little, without actually being fully awake. If we rush in at every sound, we can unintentionally wake them up more than they would have on their own. I remember a grandmother who told me, when I had babies, I'd listen at the door before going in. And that's the key right there. Listening. Waiting a few moments. Giving the baby a chance to self-settle. Of course, if the cries escalate or you know something's truly wrong, you go in. But many times, babies will stir, fuss, and fall back to sleep if we give them a minute to do so. This doesn't mean ignoring their needs, it means learning their rhythms. Observing. Giving them space to find their way back to sleep when they can. Just like we do when we wake at 2 a.m., roll over, and drift off again without needing a full conversation or snack. One father told me he always used to jump out of bed the second he heard a peep from the baby monitor. It wasn't until someone gently suggested he wait just a minute or two that he realized his baby didn't always need him right away. It felt strange at first, he said. But I started to notice, he'd fuss, squirm, then just go back to sleep. That simple change gave both of them better rest. So if you're helping your children or grandchildren with nighttime routines, or even just offering advice from experience, remind them that sometimes less is more. Waiting a moment, listening carefully, and responding calmly can be one of the most powerful tools in helping a baby sleep better. Now, let's move into the last piece of the puzzle, and it's one that's especially close to my heart because it's so often misunderstood. It's underestimating how sensitive babies are to the energy and emotions around them. You and I know that energy doesn't lie. When a room feels tense, we feel it. When someone walks in and they're anxious or frustrated, you can sense it without a word being spoken. Well, babies, tiny as they are, feel that too. They might not understand what's being said, but they absolutely pick up on how it's being said. The tone, the mood, the rhythm of the environment, it all registers in their little nervous systems. A stressed parent trying to force a nap while thinking about work, bills, or house chores will naturally have a harder time calming the baby. The baby feels that inner rush. That pressure. That low hum of frustration. And in response, their own system stays alert. It's like they're wired to say, something's not quite safe. I better stay awake. I once visited a friend who was a new mom. She was doing everything right, feeding on time, sticking to routines, keeping the lights low. But her baby still struggled to settle. After a gentle chat, she shared that she felt like she was failing, like she wasn't good at this. And that stress had been building in her voice, in her hands, even in how tightly she held her little one. We did something very simple. I asked her to sit, take a few deep breaths with her feet flat on the ground, and let her shoulders drop. I turned on a soft lullaby. And I asked her to just hold her baby without trying to fix anything. Within minutes, her baby had softened. Eyes heavy. Breathing slower. It wasn't a magic trick. It was just a shift in energy, from tension to presence. And that's something you, as a grandparent or older caregiver, have in spades, the gift of presence. You've lived through life storms. You know how to slow down. You understand that not everything needs fixing, and that sometimes just being calm is the most powerful thing you can offer. If you're around to help with a baby's sleep, bring your steady energy into the room. Sit with them. Hum softly. Create peace with your presence. That stillness is something babies don't get from screens, or toys, or even books. They get it from people who've walked through life and learned to slow their pace. And if your child or grandchild is struggling to soothe their baby, remind them, gently, that babies need calm more than they need control. That their own emotional state matters. And that it's okay to take a moment for themselves before trying to settle their little one. Because when a caregiver feels safe, a baby does too. And sleep follows safety, always. By now, it's easy to see that getting a baby to sleep well isn't just about tiredness, it's about rhythm, calm, and consistency. And when those pieces come together, something beautiful happens. The baby feels secure. The house feels more peaceful. And parents, grandparents, everyone, can finally breathe a little easier. Now there's one last thing I want to share, something that might seem small but has a powerful ripple effect. It's forgetting to create a consistent sleep space. And let me tell you, this one is more common than most people think. We've all been there, visiting family, traveling, or just having a busy week, and the baby sleeps in the crib one night, the swing the next, maybe in a stroller during a walk, or even on someone's chest in the recliner. It feels harmless. And sometimes, it's unavoidable. Life is full, and flexibility is part of parenting. But when the sleeping environment changes too often, babies can't form the clear associations they need to sleep deeply and confidently. Imagine trying to fall asleep in a new hotel every night, different pillows, different lighting, strange noises. It takes your brain longer to relax, doesn't it? Babies feel the same way. When they're always being moved around for sleep, their brain never fully connects. This is where I sleep. This is my safe, cozy space. One young mom I worked with kept wondering why her baby slept great at daycare but not at home. After some gentle reflection, we realized that at daycare, her baby always napped in the same crib with the same blanket, white noise, and soft lighting. At home, the naps happened wherever and whenever they could, sometimes in the car, sometimes on the couch, sometimes in her arms while watching TV. She didn't even realize it was inconsistent. But once she recreated that same setup at home, a dedicated space, a regular routine, her baby began sleeping so much better. Not just longer, but more peacefully. Now, this doesn't mean you have to create a Pinterest-perfect nursery. Babies don't need fancy. They need familiar. A darkened room. A sound machine. The same blanket. A few soft words. That's all it takes to tell their little system, this is where I can rest. And the more often we repeat that environment, the easier it becomes for their bodies to settle. As grandparents, sometimes we only see the baby once a week or even less. But if you're caring for a little one at your home, try creating a consistent sleep space just for them. A quiet room with the same portable crib, the same soft sheet, the same bedtime song. It might not seem like a big deal, but that routine becomes a cue. And it tells the baby, this place is safe for me. I know what to expect here. Even if you're not putting the baby to sleep yourself, this is the kind of wisdom you can gently pass down. You can say, I've noticed when we keep things steady, it really helps the baby relax. Or offer to help set up a space just for sleep. It's the kind of support that doesn't criticize, but quietly creates calm, and that's often the most helpful thing you can do for a young parent who's stretched thin. And as we step back to look at the big picture, it becomes clear that all these forgotten things we've talked about, the overstimulation, the lack of wind down, the inconsistent cues, the rush to respond, the ever-changing sleep space, they're not mistakes from bad parenting. They're just little blind spots. Things that happen when we're tired or overwhelmed or trying our best without all the information. But each one of them is so fixable. And that's the most encouraging part. You don't need fancy tools or complicated plans. You just need presence. Intention. A willingness to slow down and say, let's make bedtime feel safer and simpler. The truth is, no one gets baby sleep perfectly right. Not in the 70s, not today. We all learn through trial and error. But when you've lived a little longer, when you've raised your own, maybe helped with grandkids, you realize the real secret isn't in what you do. It's in how you do it. With patience. With softness. With trust that this little person, with the right support, will find their rhythm in time. So if you're a parent watching this, know that you're not alone. If you're a grandparent helping out, know that your wisdom matters more than you think. And if you're simply someone who loves children and wants to see them thrive, thank you. Because children sleep better when they're surrounded by people who care enough to get it right. Before we end, let me remind you, peaceful nights don't come from perfection. They come from consistency. From noticing the small things. From adjusting with love. And if this video gave you even one helpful idea or made you feel just a little more hopeful, I hope you'll take a moment to like it. It truly helps the message reach more families who might be searching for peace in their own bedtime routines. If you have a story or a tip of your own, something that helped your baby or grandbaby sleep better, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. You never know who might be helped by your experience. And of course, if you want more videos like this, about baby care, grandparenting, or just practical wisdom from a lifetime of loving children, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more we can learn from each other. Here's to calm nights, well-rested babies, and the deep joy that comes from watching the little ones in our lives sleep soundly, safe in our care. Thank you for being here. You are doing more good than you realize.